done with this. We're gonna put it on the engine hoist. You screw a self-tapper into this oil barbell. It's right here, and then you pull it out. And then take a good wire brush and clean inside that hole. And then you put this bad boy in there, just like so. Give it a little tap. Now that's done. And then you take your rear timing cover gasket, and it goes this way. And you want to put some RTV right there across that corner. All right, that's that. Time to put the flywheel. I'm gonna stick this flex plate on here real quick.
You got
and then we're gonna put the transmission together.
You put all the new plugs in already too, huh?
Yes, sir. That concludes the motor, man. All right, chitlins, we're about to put this motor in that truck. Just real quick, I did this off camera because I had a problem with my GoPro, but I put the AN6 transmission cooler lines on, put them on now because they're kind of a pain to do under the vehicle. And then all my 15mm bell housing bolts are in there. We got a Dorman 917562. That's the transfer case gasket. And then we got a PF48 AC Delco oil filter. PF48 AC Delco oil filter. And then we got our K061045 Master Pro belt. That's a 105-inch belt, 6 rib. The one that came with the kit did not fit. Over the AC, over the tensioner, under the crank pulley, wrap around the water pump, down back to the power steering, up to the alternator, and under the idler, and back to AC. That's it. All right, I don't know if you can see it, but the transfer case is still sitting in there. The cross member is still there, and the transmission mount's there. And we're using the adapter that came with the four-wheel drive 4060. We're not using the one that came off the truck. Come on.
Clyde tells jokes. Knock him dead, buddy.
Ow! 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 Alright, if you play your cards right, you can get the transmission lined up exactly back where it was, which is going to let your oil pan clear your the spinny thing over there. You know, the one that spins and stuff. It'll clear that. Your what do you call that stuff there? Your transmission linkage will fit. Right back where it was. The drive shaft will clear the transmission. And all that stuff will work like it's supposed to. And right there, our motor mounts are lined up. And we're almost all the way back to the firewall back there. It's in there, boys. Like a glove. It's kind of crazy that after 40 years, GM didn't change enough to make this hard. All right, last time we got a lot done. We got the motor in there. We got the tranny hooked up. Transmission cooler lines installed. Shifter linkage installed. Transmission bolted to the transfer case. I went ahead and put the original harness back on. I mean, if you took it off, you should be able to put it back on, no problem. That purple wire that I kept, one side plugs into the transfer case harness, and the speed sensor wire that I kept off the main engine harness also plugs into the transfer case harness. All right, if you bought the AC compressor kit that I linked, then you're gonna have a new can thing. You know what it is. It's a can thing. And it goes right here. And if you're like me, you don't have a wrench that massively big. Unless you do. Negative. This one will fit though. And unplug your connector. It looks like we'll need to move this out of the way. A 10 and a 10. So we got a 10. Whoops. That for this moment in time. It is indeed a 16. Just lightly snug it because it's plastic and it'll split. Now you just tighten these up after you put some oil and stuff in there and lubricated your O-rings. You're going to take your new AC line and you have to bend this right here. So this is about a 90 instead of it being kind of straight like it was. Very carefully so you don't kink this really hard. There's pretty much no way you're going to bend it without kinking it slightly. But try not to fold it. You know what I mean? Okay, you're going to need two different washers. One thick one, one thin one. These are the sealing washers that go behind the compressor on the hose. And it should be pretty obvious, but the bottom one is the deep one and the top one is the shallow one. And you're going to have to bend that hose to fit very carefully because it doesn't want to fit very easily. So this hose is probably going to have to go right here under that for it to fit right. And then you can hook this one up a little bit later. You're going to have to pull the grill and everything off of there to get that one. Highly recommend you spray this with PB Blaster on the old one and let it soak for a couple hours because they don't like to come off after they've been sitting for a while. Okay, you got to pull this grill off. There's a hidden bolt right here in the center. And you got to take some of these Phillips off. Okay, there's some 7s up here and some 7s behind the lower light. So my plan today is to get all the hoses hooked up and then do the electrical. And there's one more in the center at the bottom. Okay, we need to take this top one off here. This top AC line. And to do that, Looks like it's going to be a 19. And this is very hot, so don't try and catch it and burn yourself. Cool it off a little bit. Get your new one and put it through there. Make sure you don't cross thread this bad boy. Might have to bend it down a little bit. Gonna be very careful not to cross thread this because it's gonna mean replacing your condenser. Not because I've done it before, but because I've watched someone else do it before. Critical thing to working on cars is to learn from other people's mistakes. And if you're gonna put a new orifice tube in, it goes right here. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and put that on right now. So what is an orifice tube, you might ask? It is both a filter and a small valve where fluid expands inside of here. Without this, your AC really won't get very cold no matter how good of a compressor you put on there. And if this is clogged up and dirty, you won't get good AC. Won't get good cold. Know what I mean? No cold, good get. Alright, when you take this orifice tube out, it has to go back in the same way it came out. And look at that. Full of the duties. This one actually isn't too bad, honestly. But I've seen a much worse. So remember, it goes back in the same way it came out. If you can't remember how it came out, it came out just like this. Okay, and it goes back in just like that on this line right here. And put a new O-ring on that line so you don't have to worry about it leaking. Make sure you match your O-rings up so that way you don't end up with the wrong O-ring. Okay, now our AC system's done. We just gotta vacuum it and charge it, but we'll do that later. Then you get your AN6 adapters for your radiator and your upper hose. Slide that puppy on there. All right, we got our transmission cooler lines on, our radiator hose on, and way down there we put our new, let's see if we can get a good picture of it. We put our new mounts on onto the radiator, the rubber isolators. If you got the radiator I sent you, it's going to be the farthest holes out on the radiator core support for the 40-inch wide radiator. Alright, we got our, what is this here? I have no idea. This is a drill bit and the tap that I linked to install this. And we're going to install it right there in the water pump. And why are we doing that? That's because the LS needs a steam port vent, and this radiator doesn't have a place to vent it. So we're going to vent it right here. And we're just going to vacuum that up real quick. 11/32 square drive. Fits that tap pretty good. Make sure you don't have any metal in your tap threads. All right, make sure you spray your little tap with some kind of oil so it doesn't gall the threads. And then drop it on the floor first. That's a critical step. And be sure and oil it again. Try to make sure it's as straight as you can get it. Nothing against not straight. Then make sure it threads in nice like. Okay, you're going to want to put that hole closer to this thing because I created a problem. See my problem? That was a critical error that I can easily rectify. So look, put a little bit of gray on there. Okay, that's that. And then we just run our steam hose from there to there. That's it. All right. I took my paint pen and marked where I want these fan relays to go. Right there. And I'm just going to drill some holes right there. Now I'm going to take my box of 1,000,000 little clips and find some that'll fit in those holes. I'm probably going to spill them all over the place. Critical step when working on cars. Just make a big mess. Looks like these will probably do. That's gone forever. Looks like had to drill out the holes a little bigger on the plastic piece. And that didn't work. Sometimes you gotta re-hole it, you know what I mean? There we go. All right. So power, ground, PCM. If you, for some reason, you're not using the LSPCM, you could put these on a ground switch too, but I think that's silly. Those go right to the battery. But you need to cut this tape and make this ground longer. Simply not long enough. So what I'll do is I'll take this ground out and I'll put this back in there like that and tape that back up. You have to remember they made this stuff in China, so they really don't understand what's going on over here in America. Sometimes I don't even think I know what's going on here in America. Boom, taped up. And then this ground right here is going to go to your fender. Potentially. Yep, it sure does. What do you know? All right. And if you got the fans and radiator that I told you to get and the relay harness, then on the short fan harness connector, it's going to be blue to blue and black to yellow on the fans themselves. And on the long side, it's going to be black to black and red to blue. Hope you got that. Now, I'm sure you don't need a lesson in battery installation. However, allow me to show you. You see that? It's not in there. Boom, it's in there. That's how you install a battery. Easy as pie. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the valley plate off and put the new valley plate on. Excuse me, the one that we painted. And then we're going to finish doing the wiring. I like to make it a big spaghetti mess and then make it look clean. But you could make it look clean and then make it look like a big spaghetti mess if you want. Up to you. All right, we're going to pull this lift plate off of here. Grab you a rag and wipe this down one more time. Then put your gasket down. Put your plate down. And then just give it a whack. That's that. And if you're following along, then you already painted your bolts. And I think these are 18 foot-pounds. Somewhere around there. It'll be fine. And these come in two sizes. You can get them in 10 millimeter or 13 millimeter. So these happen to be 13 millimeter. Do your middle ones first. Make sure you put your batteries in your snap-on ratchet the right way. Set that bad boy to foot-pounds and crank it up to 18 foot-pounds. Anywhere you're putting grounds, like for example this fuel pump ground right here, you want to clean it real good. You want it down to bare metal. See that? Fuel pump relay ground, I should say. And under the truck where the fuel pump ground actually goes, on the frame rail where the ground goes for the pump itself, I clean that with the grinder because I don't want any problems with my grounds. And we got a couple of grounds here. This one is for the harness. Need to try to run this clean as possible, even though it has a cover over it. Boom, nice and clean. And your fuel pump relay, that's power on. If you bought the relay I sent you, linked in the description, as they say. I guess it is now I who says linked in the description. So our fuel pump's gonna go right here. All of these wires here are hot, as far as I am aware. So this one's gonna be fuel pump. And I think that's a 13. Boom. So we got our fuel pump relay grounded. We got power to it. And all we need to do is hook up this wire to key on power. Easy peasy. Know what I'm easy, dog? Look at that. It's coming together, boys. So this is our, what is this? Somebody tell me in the description. Just kidding. This is the thing that goes to places. Just kidding. This is the transfer case harness. So remember I didn't know what that one purple wire was for that was chewed up on my first video? Well, it goes to this right here. Can you see? It's a single wire connector. And it goes to the engine harness. And we're gonna route this bad boy under the exhaust. Okay, that's that. And then when that just goes and plugs into the transfer case shifter and the speed sensor and a couple other places under there. The speed sensor on the transfer case, I should say. And this, I still don't know what this goes to. This is not the purple wire I was talking about, I don't think. All right, now we're going to put the engine harness on there. And something you should be aware of is this side right here with the computer and all that and the relay box goes on. If you bought the harness that I linked you, this goes on the passenger side. And it can get kind of tricky because it's a little bit shorter than you want it to be usually. So all these plugs go on that side. And all these plugs go on this side. This one right here goes to the transmission. And you want to figure out where you're going to mount your computer before you start doing anything. And I think I'm going to mount it right here. So I'm going to want to put it under this AC hose. And you could try to mount this in the cab, but it's really a pain in the butt because there's not a lot of room there. And I tried and I didn't like how it looked, so. And it was going to be impossible to get to these fuses and relays without taking the whole glove box out. So I didn't want to do that. And I'm going to put it right here. The first things first, I'm going to mount the PCM on the engine mount. Whoops. I'm going to mount the PCM on the mount that I bought for it. All right, we got our ECU ready to go from source-ecm.com. Actually, I got it off of eBay, but that's the seller, I believe. They put a nice sticker on there for me. I appreciate that. And here is video evidence that I did not open this. These PCM screws are a T25. And these brackets, if you got the ones I linked, there's many different styles. But these are like low profile ones. All right, so this is gonna go like so. Now we're going to grab some self-tappers and some washers and nail it down. Put them somewhere you can knock them off and make a mess. That's important. Make sure you drop the first set so you know where they're supposed to fall. That is that. We got our fan relays installed, PCM mounted. Whatchamacall those things? Little boxy boxes. Those are mounted. So this is really self-explanatory. But if you got the relay harness for the fans, these two wires go to the blue and green. They come out of this other harness here. The engine harness. This is like the whole group of extra wires. And see how these are blue and green, and these are blue and green? Blue goes to blue, and green goes to green, and then the PCM will control the fans. That's that simple. And then you just plug all that stuff in where it goes. It's pretty easy. Easy peasy. If you leave your injectors for last, then you can just, what do you call it? Take the fuel rail off of the intake, put these wires inside there, and then put the fuel rail back down over the intake, over these wires, so that this is kind of tucked inside the, what you call it? Know what I mean? Yeah, me neither. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm just saying the words that you want to hear. All right, we need this little plastic piece right here. What we're gonna do right now is remove the old throttle cable and put in a new throttle cable. All right, save this piece off your old throttle cable. All right, and I just broke that little plastic piece right here and then pushed the cable out. Okay, I highly recommend putting 2 washers on here on your new throttle cable, not included with the throttle cable. You have to find some. You have to disassemble the throttle cable to where the cable is out of here, and then you have to put it together inside once it's under the dash. So just wedge it right there, like so. Take your throttle cable and push this through there so it looks like that. And then you put another washer in there. Now you're gonna feed your throttle cable through that hole. Now you clip that plastic piece right back where it was and just leave that piece there. And then lift your pedal up off the floor and wedge something under it. And leave it like that. Because when you install the other end to the throttle body, you're going to want this up all the way. Okay, there's a ground on the back of the head on the new harness. Use one of your old engine mount, LS engine mount to block bolts. They're short and they fit in the hole in the back of the head. Make sure you put these on your harness. These are the injector adapters before you put your intake manifold on. Okay, your old distributor plug that we kept with the pink and the white wire. Your pink wire is key on power. On pretty much any Chevrolet with a distributor, pink is key on power. So we're gonna make that a little bit longer, and that's gonna turn on our fuel pump and our engine harness. Easy peasy. So we're just gonna clip it. We don't need that anymore. Clip it and strip it, boys. And then I prepared this wire. It's 10 gauge. Should handle any current it needs. 10 gauge. It's a game. Get the loom over that. Get you some more loom here. Okie that's that. And then we're gonna hook this to our blue fuel pump wire and to our red harness key on power wire. All right, we're gonna take our red wire from our harness, our new engine harness. We're gonna strip it back about an inch or so. Then we're gonna twist it and fold it. And that is so it won't come out of the connector. And then we're gonna put our red and our blue wire together right here. And we're gonna put a connector on that. And we're gonna crimp it real good like. And you're gonna give it the old pull test and make sure neither wire comes out of there. Then you're gonna hit this side with some fire and you're gonna run this all this behind here. And if you want, you can put it in this grommet or this whatever this thing is. Not a grommet. This little wire holder. Boom. You want to make sure it's ran in such a way that it's not real tight, getting pulled tight, and that it's not going to get pulled on if the motor moves around or anything like that. This is the wire that goes to the old distributor pink wire. Or I'm sorry, the ignition coil pink wire. Get the old tug. Have your tape handy. Hit it with some fire. And just hide that back there. Good as gold. So now, when I hook up power to this, everything should work. Fuel pump, engine, harness, computer, all that. Should work. Key phrase. Really never know until you try. And then you had some grounds left on your old harness right here, these two. You're going to want to put them right here on the front of the cylinder head, because that's where they reach. And again, you're going to use your old LS engine mount bolt, because that fits good there. And you still have to hook up this coolant temperature sensor wire, the green one, but that can wait for a little bit. Look at that bad boy. Have you ever seen a deep ratchet wrench? Okay, that's done. Now we're going to put our steam line on. Make sure if you painted this area, you clean the paint off where the little gasket goes. All right, when you tighten the intake manifold down, you want to be careful not to really over tighten these, and you want to start them all first before you tighten any of them. And you should know that these snap off real easy. Make sure you don't pinch any of your wires with those bolts. Don't tighten them too tight. All right, we're gonna make battery cables today. Not just any battery cables. We're using 1/0 gauge oxygen-free copper welding cable. Copper lugs, heat shrink, marine grade, waterproof, battery lug crimpers, and cable cutters. I'm gonna start by making my body ground, and that needs to be pretty short. And I found that maybe a little more than 1/2 inch is best. Just like so. And if you have these cable crimpers, you have to crimp each one twice to get a good crimp. You're gonna start off where, I don't know if you can see that, but it's 50 and 50 right there. So you're gonna do that. Actually, I do it each one 4 times. I put it on there and I drop it out. Make sure it falls. So I'll do this one once, and then I'll flip it like about 90 degrees and do it again. And then I'll turn these to, what was it, 35, I think. I guess that's in millimeters or something. And then I'll do it again. This is definitely a process. But when I'm done, you could probably tow a boat with these or something. You could use them as safety chains. They're pretty stout. I do this on pretty much all my builds. Make custom battery cables. Doesn't matter if they want audio or not. I just think it looks good. And this is a lot better than the 4-gauge wires that the LS come with. See? Supposedly this heat shrink shrinks down to 8 millimeters. So we're gonna find out. Looks like I used way too much on this cable though. I have to cut my pieces smaller. This is my first time using this specific heat shrink. Okay, that one's done. Came out pretty good. This heat shrink is very thick. Very, very thick. Like you could, you know, wallop. You can give them a wallop with that thing right there, boy. Find yourself in the middle of the woods and a bear's attacking you, just rip one of these off of your truck and beat that bear. And then become the bear. Okie dokie, boys. Time to make another one. So this one I need to actually measure roughly. Let me go. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna go to the starter with this one. About 4 feet on that one. 4 foot 2 inches to be exact. That's from the battery to the starter, with the battery being on the passenger side. Honestly, this setup right here is one of the best investments that I've made, because I've sold these cables to people for like 150 bucks installed, and it cost me like maybe $40 for 3 cables, or maybe a little more, probably like 50 bucks. If you're using this waterproof adhesive shrink wrap or heat shrink, make sure you got glue coming out of the edges before you stop heating it. So I usually make 4 cables. I make body ground from battery to body, one from battery to starter, one from battery to engine for ground, and one for alternator to battery for charging. So next I'm going to do the engine ground, 3 foot 3 inches. Now I make these a little long so I can route them nicely. So make your own measurements. Don't go by my measurements. Now if you bought these crimpers, you might be tempted to just use the 35 and crimp it right there. But if you do that first, this thing gets, well, it gets smashed. Excuse me. The cold's really been kicking my butt. So I highly recommend you do the 50, I guess that's millimeters. I don't know what kind of measurement that is. It's a China measurement. Obviously it's not 50 millimeters because that would be massive. 50 Chinese gauges. How about that? I don't know if you've seen that episode of Linus Tech Tips, and they bought that big TV from China, and it was supposed to be like 160 inches or something like that, and it was only like 110 inches, and it was like a garbage quality TV too. But the funny thing is, the seller goes, Chinese inches and American inches are not the same. So take that how you will. But what that means to me is that the Chinese don't know how to measure anything accurately. Unless they're using their measurement everywhere. We just want to be different. Not the same like you. This one's gonna be black ground. So then I just have to make one more for the alternator. Boom. That cake is done. Now I just need to make one more from, I guess I'm going to do from alternator to battery. This one with the passenger mounted alternator. No, sorry. The driver mounted alternator in the stock location for the LS, and the battery on the passenger side. We got 3 feet 9 inches, and that's so I can route it under the AC bracket. I think that'll fit. Yeah, this is more than enough. I should be able to route it down close to the frame and up through the AC bracket. Ding. Whoop. Look at that beautiful crimp. Look at it. Bask in it. That cake is done, boys. All right, now I got all my battery cables done. All right, we got it done, almost. I still have a few wires here to hook up. I got my battery cables on. I got my ground there. You can't see that because... All right, if you got the harness that I linked to you in the description, then something you should know is this purple wire, brake signal, TCC ground, to 12 volts. It is not to 12 volts all the time. It is to 12 volts when the brake is not pressed. That is when the brake is not pressed, okay? And the wire you want to hook that TCC wire up to is this purple wire right here, coming off of the brake switch. That's this one right here. So I'm just going to use a wire tap. Oh yeah. I pulled a vacuum on it, got the AC ready to go. That belt still needs to break in a little bit. Okay. So, right here is a purple wire, and that wire connects to inside the brake pedal, the brake switch. And that one is when you don't press the brake, it's 12 volts, and then when you press the brake, it's nothing, which is exactly what you need for the purple TCC wire on the LS swap harness. This wire I still have to hook up. I'm waiting on the sensor still. It got back ordered apparently. This is the coolant temp sensor wire. And we're gonna put the 3-wire coolant temp sensor right here. And the adapter harness plugs into here, plugs into the sensor, and then the extra wire goes to that green wire for the coolant temp sensor. And then the gauge will work. And under the truck there's a the speed sensor wire that goes to the rear of the transfer case. It's purple and yellow twisted pair. And on the LS harness there is a green and purple speed sensor wire. And if you're using 4-wheel drive, you need to hook those 2 wires to the transfer case speed sensor wires. You need to tee into them. You can't just cut them and connect them because you want your speedometer to work. And they're opposite. So purple goes to yellow. Purple on the LS harness goes to yellow on the truck harness. And green on the LS harness goes to purple on the truck harness. And it has to be that way. And then once those are hooked up, the transmission will shift and the speedometer will work on the dash. And you'll be able to look at live data and see the speed on the LS PCM. And it came out pretty good, I think. I got some brackets made for the radiator, and those are right here. And it's just a piece of angle iron, 2-inch I think, to a piece of 1-inch square stock, and then just kind of cut it at an angle, folded this bottom piece down to stop the radiator from moving back and forth. And I didn't make them, the customer had somebody make them for him, but I'm no welder, so it's better than I could have done. And then I hit him with this blue little got to put a couple more coats on there so it's nice and poppy, you know what I mean? I'm no painter and I'm no welder, but it came out pretty good, I think. I mean, look at that glossy. Look at that. Got the fuel pressures. It holds good fuel pressure when the key's off. That's important. You don't want it to drain back real quickly. You want it to hold fuel pressure. Got our AC sucked down. All we need to do is put some refrigerant. That's why this hose is flat, because it's under vacuum right now. I just need to charge it. I got the battery cables installed. Got my body ground going right to there. Got my engine ground going to down here. I zip tied all these fluid wires, and the electrical hoses, they're all zip tied, and these fluid conduits here are all zip tied together. I tried to make it look pretty clean. When you have several harnesses, it's kind of hard to make it like super clean, but that's what you get when you don't want to pay $1,400 for a custom plug and play LS swap harness, which is what it costs to have it done by somebody like John Nyberg from the OBS group. He does really good work, but not every customer can afford that. I know I can't, but if you have any questions, just comment and I'll respond as soon as possible. I'm really busy, but I do take on swaps. If you want someone to do your swap for you, I can do it for you. I usually charge around $8,500 total. That's parts, labor, engine, trans, everything. And it's turnkey. Everything works, AC, gauges, all that stuff. And it's ready to be a daily driver. The only thing I don't do, and it's not included in my price, is tunes and what's the other thing? Exhaust. So if you want custom exhaust, it's extra. I can get it done. I do install cams, but I don't do tuning. And there's plenty of places to do that stuff, and they're really good at it. I highly recommend you pay what it costs to get it done right, versus having some hack, you know, tune your stuff for you, because it's gonna end up hurting you later. But I think I'm pretty happy with it. Just trying to show you all the stuff. See, I went through the trouble of taping that and luming it, and I loomed this back up because this is all broken loom all the way to the headlights. But that's how we do it here at Brutal Motor Works, boys. Yeah, I know my shop's probably not the nicest shop in the world. I'm working out of a lean-to pole barn in middle of the country. But yeah, hey, at least I'm not working outside in the rain, you know what I mean, in the cold. I think I got it pretty good here. I don't even really have to leave home, you know, because it's right outside. And this is what I do for a living, man. And so far, all my customers have been really happy with my work. I've done about 30 LS swaps. And each one, I think I learn a little more and I do a little bit nicer than the last one. At least I try to. And if you want to get one done with me, give me a shout out and I'll take care of it for you.